My name is Adam Skafi, and I'm working as Director Digital Product Development at TA Cook. So this topic has a little bit with what you guys were discussing. And I'm touching this topic, the benefit of and impact of intelligent automation on businesses. So that's my agenda, and I'm going to talk a little bit about why now intelligent automation, what's that topic, and then to clarify the difference between robotic process automation versus intelligent automation, and then to touch the benefits of intelligent automation, what benefits can intelligent automation produce to every business, and how to apply it. So that's in brief. So usually what I do, I follow the consultancy business, because every time a consulting company builds a full landing page on their website with business cases and so on, then we know and we understand that there's a huge potential behind it. And that's for me, it's something that it's a KPI that I usually follow in order to measure how the importance of the topic is. So just looking at Deloitte, they define the intelligent automation as the combination between artificial intelligence artificial intelligence and the traditional automation that everyone is using. That's still vague, but Deloitte stated that it is starting to change the way business is done in nearly every sector of the company. So looking as well at Accenture, Accenture mentioned as well, or defined intelligent automation as an automation solution enhanced with cognitive capabilities. So here we come much more into cognitive abilities that enable systems to learn, interpret, and respond as a human does. So so that's usually the consultancy business on the left. On the right, we see a study by Harvard Business Review. So they've said they've assessed, or they've done a survey, and they found as well, by interviewing C-level positions, they found that intelligent automation is critical to organizations' ability to compete and survive in the years ahead. So here we find that when we look at the statistics, we see that almost 56% or even more, they have moderate to significant impact. They admit that artificial intelligence brought moderate to significant impact to their business. And that's why I'm touching this topic, because it is started impacting every and each business. And again, according to a Harvard Business Review, they said that intelligent automation is moving beyond hype and into the mainstream. So before, this terminology was a little bit vague, and now we see it happen, and companies have adopted this terminology, and they are moving into the implementation. So moving ahead, that's Thomas Davenport. He's a professor at Babson College. He's as well graduated from Harvard University, and he said, automating frequent data-intensive tactical decisions can save a lot of money. So there's no doubt that automation helps companies bringing much more added value, only if really they have a strategy to implement it. So just to clarify, because we know that there's always confusion against certain terminology. So RPA, or robotic process automation, was used frequently in the recent time. And I just wanted to clarify the difference between robotic process automation and intelligent automation. So we start usually with the robotic desktop automation. So maybe a lot of you didn't heard about this terminology, but that's effectively a kind of RPA, robotic process automation, but it is attended. That means there's someone on the computer that does some clicks. So it's semi-full automation, semi-manual, and that's why they call it robotic desktop automation. So that's usually used in legacy systems, where you really need to integrate two systems, but you don't have the capability to integrate two systems, and you still need someone to touch to complete this process. And then we have the robotic process automation, which is fully automated, and usually it's process driven. So we have a process in the background. we need to automate it. It's the steps and the workflow is very known. Then we use certain technologies to automate these things. And RPA became much more even popular in the recent times, simply because, not because the terminology is new, but because certain companies like Microsoft and Google and other companies, they have even developed robotic process automation software with low-code platform. That means you can just go and select your scenario and then run the scenario in the background, and then you have your process automated and will do the same job as we were doing by using coding in the past. So, and then moving, so that's the process of doing, and then moving along with the way we see that now it's the age of data-driven, and here it comes the machine learning and with predictive and analytics. So that's usually the machine learning capability supported with standard algorithms. So here we start talking a little bit about the increased complexity of automation. So you support it with some intelligence in the background, but still this intelligence is a little bit standard from modeling perspective. So you have a model, you give this model a picture, then the picture will be analyzed and that's it. Or you have a face recognition, or you have any other system in the background that's working based on standard algorithm. And then we move forward with the complexity, and then we have the artificial intelligence, which is supported with deductive analytics and as well with complex algorithm. There we see certain NLP, we see deep learning, we see certain advanced technologies that really help us and help human with the usage of data to solve complex problems and even meet critical decisions that even human cannot do so. So with a large intensity of data, we see that artificial intelligence with AI decisions can help us reduce a lot of risks and or mitigate a lot of risks and even take certain decisions that we are in usual ways are unable to take them. So that's the difference between RPA and intelligent automation. It's simply by doing complex processes and use artificial intelligence to achieve that. So the benefits of intelligent automation, we have many benefits for sure, but these are the top 5. So we start with the cost reduction. Cost is everywhere. So that's always the top objective of a company, to reduce cost. So saving some resources, human resources, saving maybe even system resources by automating certain complex processes and getting rid of legacy systems. The second one, the second benefit is the higher accuracy and quality. So the more you automate, the higher your quality will be and accuracy, because simply humans tend to make more mistakes than systems. But for sure, the system should be as well, from quality perspective and product development perspective, should be qualified enough to avoid mistakes and errors. And the third one is by automating and using intelligent automation, you increase the core competencies and you will become much more agile. Because system is database driven or data driven, that means whenever you have new input, your system will be able to adjust itself and meet agile decisions. And that's usually, that's not the case when humans are deciding on certain cases. The fourth one is the productivity. So according as well to Harvard Business Review, they've saw as well an increased productivity wherever intelligent automation was applied and adopted. And simply that's as well tied with number 3, the increased core competencies, as well number 2, which is the higher accuracy and quality, that will lead in the end to focus on much more important aspects and improve the whole productivity. The fifth point is the strategic focus. So if you have a data-driven system, which is as well supported with complex algorithms and with advanced technologies, and your system is able to consider all the business aspects, then you can meet your strategic focus and strategic objectives much faster and much better and much accurate. So that's why with intelligent automation, the strategic focus will be clearer and more transparent. So how to apply this intelligent automation? I found as well a lot of aspects on Accenture, Deloitte, and many other, even IBM and many other sources, and everyone's talking about something. So I tried to consolidate them. And the first thing that you have to do is a strategy on the enterprise level. So you need to understand what do you want to automate on the enterprise level, and how do you wanna meet this strategy. So you have to have a strategy in place. What are the objectives? What are the values that you're going to generate? What are the problems that you wanna solve? And then you create a full strategy and you align your internal stakeholders. The second step that you have to consider is to align your skills, to have the right skills and infrastructure. So if you have a strategy, you have an idea, you don't have the right skills, then you will not be able to execute your strategy. And the most important thing as well within this aspect, because intelligent automation is business driven and it's based on the business processes, you have to redefine and standardize your processes. So the most important thing, and the major even mistake that a lot of companies do, they take their current processes and try to automate them without optimizing them. And then you will not even achieve any efficiency by doing so. That's why it's very important to relook at the processes, draw them down, check the interlinks between them, and check if you have any business gaps between the processes, so you can have a full end-to-end business process efficiency. So, so you have the processes defined, you have the architecture and infrastructure, you have a strategy to automate, and then you have to understand how to capture value. So once you have a strategy, intelligent automation strategy in place, you have to understand as well, how do you want to capture value behind the intelligent automation? So if you automate something, if you automate a process, if you automate many processes together, you have to understand how do you want to capture the strategy, the value behind them. And then for sure you have, as we always focus on agility and lean process management, you have always to measure and learn and adjust your whole concept in order to meet the intelligent automation efficient aspect. And maybe that will lead as well in the future to the autonomous organization. That's it. If you have any questions, please feel free.
That's really interesting. I like your point about having to really rethink your processes. And I think I've seen that before where it's like, yeah, let's just throw automation on this because that will work. So that's interesting. I mean, one of my question was you had that chart with the 4 different kind of types of, talking about process automation. Yeah, and maybe you answered this, but I didn't quite get it. Do you see like a point for still having robotic process automation alongside potential the machine learning and artificial intelligence? Like, is it just situational, or really do you see them as being kind of a progression or replacement for them, or a little bit of both?
Yeah, so that's really a good question, Martin. So I see them at the moment as a blended mixture between both of them, simply because a lot of companies, they have legacy systems where machine learning doesn't support these legacy systems. So you cannot generate a lot of data. You cannot work with these systems. That's why RPA is still helpful, but with the time progressing and systems will be changing, that means machine learning will be replacing to a certain extent.
So you think like pretty much most things that use robotic process automation, you could probably replace with.
Right.
Okay, interesting.
I'd echo what Martin was saying. Yeah, we've started to recruit skills, I guess, in the RPA space in particular. So things like consultants for UiPath projects or Blue Prism or a lot of the vendors. And it's typically I'm not sure how, but it's really old school, insurance companies and stuff bringing them in, I guess, because they're very process heavy. But all they are doing is literally replicating the processes they already have that are a significant problem already and applying the tech to them. I'm interested to know, who do you see in the business actually driving this sort of uptake, and I saw a guy the other day who was in a job as like an RPA Center of Excellence lead, for example. It was the first time I've ever seen anyone in that sort of role, and they obviously have a drive to apply. But I just can't see who's going to take ownership of actually rolling this stuff out from a strategic point of view. Is it a technology thing? Is it an operations thing?
So that's really a good question. And Fraser, I think I had as well the same discussion a couple of months ago. One of my as well professors, he introduced to me Blue Prism, and I said, okay, but this is something we were doing since a couple of years ago. You know, that's not RPA, and that's not, sorry, intelligent automation. So effectively, what these companies are doing are just using the terminology and using the marketing material to just position themselves as real players in the automation strategy. And don't forget that most of them, they are as well public companies. So I believe from my perspective, the more you advertise for your future and you show that you're future driven, the more your shares will go up. So that's much more like a hype as really seeing it happen. But the big players, from my perspective, they don't yet exist, and as service providers, but they exist as companies. So you have a lot of companies that they were really built from the beginning based on automation, on automated processes, and they are delivering their services and products based with fully automated services, and you have really some intelligence behind them.
But I saw, I think it was UiPath bought a couple of businesses last year, which is all around like the concept of like process mining, which that's the like intelligence aspect, right? Is applying that into identifying. But it looked quite interesting. But I think people see this as a big opportunity to save money, probably, which is a big part of it, right? But then still someone actually being the stakeholder in the business who's driving it is, I think, are still up for grabs in a lot of places.
Absolutely. No, I've seen as well. So we my company operates in the asset performance management, and there the predictive maintenance and predictive analytics plays a big role. And after deep diving into a lot of solutions on the market, maybe we are the only real company who's really implementing machine learning and artificial intelligence behind our products. And that's one of my job, is to look at the competitors. So you deep dive into their products, and you see that these are like just standard algorithms or normal algorithms that you have, this decision tree with the if conditions and so on, and then you meet certain decisions. So you don't really have any intelligence behind them.
This is an interesting one for me, because I think people use artificial intelligence and machine learning nearly interchangeably quite often. When you talk about artificial intelligence, like as opposed to standard algorithms, are you talking about like general AI sort of tools, like or algorithms that can be applied to anything, or are you talking about people designing specific custom algorithms for like, defining artificial intelligence is interesting to me, how you define the distinction.
So it was as well unclear to me, right? So I'm coming from this domain, but you have many definitions on the market. But the only difference between machine learning and artificial intelligence. So if you look at the bubble, you see that machine learning is the small bubble, and the artificial intelligence is the biggest one. And you see in the deep bubble, you see as well the deep learning. So effectively, artificial intelligence is not a technology. It's just the terminology you use to describe the usage of different advanced technologies, including deep learning, as well machine learning, NLP, and many other technologies together. So that's from my perspective, artificial intelligence. While machine learning, you can use it just to model your data. You build your data models, and to start recognizing certain aspects within your application based on these models. So these are kind of static models, unless you implement on the top of that complex algorithms. So you can have really smart decisions matrix behind them.
How far away are we from people stood outside of offices picketing places because they've like rolled out so much automation that everyone's out of a job?
Yeah, so that's a dilemma, you know. That's always the tricky question, and I think with the time progressing, jobs have been lost, but as well new jobs have been born.
Yeah.
So, and I think the society and even the educational programs, they have to align as well with the needs of the market. So from my perspective, yeah, people have to start developing their skills, right, to meet certain criteria. So technology is advancing, the demand is increasing worldwide, population is increasing, and technology should assist this demand to be fulfilled. And then you have to have the right skills to do that. So it's a cycle.
Because I remember I grew up, my parents both worked for car manufacturers in the UK, and I remember, I don't know how old I was, but one of them, my mum worked for Peugeot, and they basically brought robots in to do all the assembly line work and stuff. And I remember driving to school one day, and like the road was blocked, and there was a huge like picket line and all this sort of stuff. And we follow like American politics. Like Andrew Yang, one of the guys in the US, there is a real big proponent of like that's going to be the future for tech companies. They're going to put everyone out of it. So how do you reskill people? We've already like the thing that has stopped some of the automation programs that we have been involved in the UK is if it's anyone in the public sector, like unions and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how those things play together. And I think that's one of the reasons people aren't putting their hand up to drive it necessarily, because then you're not that popular, right?
Yeah.
Like there's also, it's kind of like the rate at which you put people out of work versus the rate at which you can skill people up into these new roles. So it's kind of like, it's again this concept of flattening the curve. How can you flatten that curve of people going out of work while being replaced with work? And I think governments have a lot to say to investing in tech and investing in education in tech, because people think that more people are getting into all these subjects and all this, and you know, people are learning about it and there's more people getting into it, but that's not, the stats are all saying that there's less people getting into computer science than in the 80s. And it's more important than ever. So.
But as you may see, that it's not only the IT and the digital which plays role. So you have to have all the blended mixture of roles in order to achieve the optimum solution, as you've mentioned as well, around the product. So it's not only about developing the product; it's about as well the skills around it. So you need to have the full view. And I don't know if you guys have heard of EaaS, Education as a Service. So that's as well a new terminology that's being used in the recent years. So it's a continuous educational service that companies are even focusing on that to keep the development, to keep the skills of the employees under development. So it's like continuous skills development approach, and they call it education as a service. And we never know, you know, the university and the colleges and the whole complex program that you need to study for several years to be, I don't know, data scientist or something like that. Maybe that's gonna be changed in the future.
How does that differ from like MOOCs, massive open online courses, like things like, you know, Udemy and all that stuff? Is that kind of what you're talking about? Or?
No, so that's Udemy and these stuff. These are self-learning sources. So you need to teach yourself, or to go and take the course. But education as a service, these are like companies or universities even, or schools that they offer education as a service. That means they come in, they analyze the skills that you need, they check your strategy, and then they align, they create for you a specific skills matrix, and then they follow up on your strategy, and they coach your people. And that's very interesting.
I see. So kind of like engineering managers need to do less to try to do all the educational parts, and you can kind of pull in people to that. I like that. I love some of
the like MOOC stories of things that have like really taken off. The problem is with all that is I love it, but it's like some businesses you just can't convince people to hire people who don't have a degree, even if they've got 20 years experience. So getting the recognition of the value, like what's the value of this stuff? I love it. I think it's great. And I think increasingly, well, it'd be fascinating to see what happens with further education off the back of the whole COVID piece, right? Because you're going to struggle, in my opinion, you're going to struggle to justify the fees that people pay in certain countries to access a load of online material, right? So they're going to have to change. But the reason I think that a lot of degree-based stuff will hold up is because of the recognition. Like, it's like, oh, you have a degree and it's from here. So whereas actually, I think nowadays, there's a really strong case for, particularly in tech, right? And that's maybe, Martin, what the way that you counter, yeah, you're right, there aren't actually more and more people going into tech, but there are more and more people ending up in tech jobs, and they're coming from different backgrounds and different experiences. Like my brother did a degree in ecology and like went to Madagascar for a while, and now he's a DevOps engineer because he's all self-taught and went through it. But he did definitely find it harder because he had to prove to people that he could do it rather than having a badge which said he studied some stuff. But then it comes to reskilling these people who we're talking about are going to lose jobs because of automation. You've then got to reskill a load of people in a fashion where they're incentivized to do that, and then people are going to take what they've been reskilled in seriously versus someone who's up. Yeah, I don't know. It's yeah, it's difficult, right?
It is, and but I think companies have to start thinking about this approach as well if they want to survive in the future, and if you want to stay competitive. So they have to look at the skills seriously of their teams, and then create certain plans to align their strategies with the skills of their staff and their workforce.